Well, welcome to our post-secondary options boot camp wrap-up panel. My name is Saida Wright. I'm the post-secondary options coordinator here at the Black United Fund of Oregon, and we are super excited that you are watching this live. We have a phenomenal panel of amazing community members that are here that want to talk about some of their career choices and why they've made those choices. We absolutely love and respect education. We are excited for those who decide to go to college, but that is not the only route to success. And so we want to make sure that each and every one of you understand that your life is going to take a lot of turns and there are options for you. So I'm going to go ahead and allow Ms. Marshana to introduce herself. Oh, and my pronouns are she, her pronouns. We love them. Go ahead, Ms. Marshana.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us, panelists and attendees. I'm Marshana Williams. I'm the Black United Fund's Scholarship Writing Workshop facilitator and also alumna. So I've been a part of this organization for as long as I can remember, probably like 16, 17, and just I'm stuck. It's a good stuck. So welcome. And my pronouns are she, her. And as we get started, we're just going to let our lovely panelists introduce themselves. And then once you do, pass it on to the next person. I'm going to drop in the chat what we're looking for. So definitely your pronouns, your name, if you choose to, your title, your organization, and other things you're involved in as well. And I'm gonna start with Dorcas.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Dorcas Kawesa, pronouns she and her. I am currently, I recently started working at NASA. I guess we're talking about, our roles at NASA at the Ames Research Center over in California. And in my role, I'm going to be serving as the aeromechanics structural analysis engineer, particularly for the JPL and Ames Mars Science Helicopter Project. And as part of that role, I'm going to be providing design and structural analysis for different engineering activities, which includes structure design for proposed rotor blades. So basically, fun stuff that I'll be doing there. Besides that, I am currently a doctoral student at Penn State, where I'm actually finishing up within the next month and a half my doctoral work. In my work, I'm getting my degree in mechanical engineering, and my work focuses on analyzing 3D printed composites and investigating their predictability of how they're going to work. So amazing stuff that I'm doing out there, cutting edge research, but it's so fun. Anything else I'm involved in, I've been involved in the Society of Women Engineers and NSB in terms of community service work, and I enjoy doing a lot of community service. And as I transition on into my professional career outside of academia, I look forward to a lot of that and seeking more mentorship in terms of how to thrive as a young professional. And thank you.
Dorcas, who do you want to pass it to?
Jay.
Hi, my name is Draisha Brannon. I go by Jay, she, her pronouns. I am a civil engineer for the city of Portland. I am a designer, construction manager, project manager of capital assets and manage around $20-some million worth of capital assets, a wastewater project, culvert replacements, pump stations. Some of my fun projects that everybody knows are Mount Tabor reservoirs, some work on Washington Park, Leif Erikson Trail. When you walk on that, it doesn't disappear. That's because there are culverts, because of one of my projects. So I'm a city of Portland, born and raised, and it's really kind of a joy to work for the city of Portland. I volunteer in numerous roles. I'm the president-elect of the National Society of Black Engineers, the environmental justice chair of the Portland NAACP. Most recently, starting yesterday, I was selected to be part of the Multnomah County Charter Review Committee, and a bunch of other things, but I can't even list them off. But education, STEM advocacy, environmental justice, those are the lens I come forth with. So I will pass it on to Fidel.
Hi, my name is Fidel Ferrer, and I am the founder and executive director for Project Lido, which we support Title I schools in the Portland and Beaverton School District with Lego robotics as a way of enhancing STEM and leadership skills along the STEM, especially intentionally focusing on BIPOC communities, community of color. And I am Afro-Latino, from Cuba originally, relocated in the States. I got a biochemistry engineering degree, pursuing a dental career, and being in the Portland and the district actually for quite some time, the city of Portland, and connecting with the Black United Fund, Intel, Apple, New Seasons, and things like that, providing resources for the students in which they can see themselves represented in the field of STEM, the field of science, that are important to our next generation of dreamers, I would say. And I'm going to pass it on to Diana.
Hi, I think you were saying, my name's Danae, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. It's truly an honor. I am a registered nurse, and I'm currently getting my nurse practitioner degree. I have been a nurse for about 13 years. I am the founding president of the Alliance of Black Nurses Association of Oregon. And we are the first chapter in the Pacific Northwest of the National Black Nurses Association. There's about 113 chapters nationwide. I also sit on the Mini Nurse Academy committee with National, and we are developing and hopefully soon to be launching in the next year, our engagement project, going into elementary schools and targeting 3rd through 6th graders and talking to them about what nurses do and engaging them into entering the profession possibly. You know, being a nurse is a really interesting profession, especially right now. And I think that I'm really excited to be here to really just talk about what nurses do, because I think sometimes folks think that nurses just are in the hospital caring for people, and that's just one part of what nurses do. And with that, I will pass it on to Mims, is that right?
Yes, you pronounced it correctly. Thank you. Mims Rouse. I am the founder of the African American XY program. It is a software that helps develop students in their support from transitioning from education to career to lifestyle, helping them create a vision for the life they want to live, creating a timeline for that journey. My background is one of those backgrounds that, you know, that's comprised of a lot of turns and twists and things. Started off a biology major, loved English much more, but decided to still pursue medicine. So took more science classes, MCAT, applied to medical school, all that jazz. Decided to work for the U.S. Department of Labor for 8.5 years, resigned there, assistant district director, worked in corporate America for a few years, and now the executive director for the Coalition of Black Men, while I start my own firm as a software developer. So just a lot of twists and turns, but as I stand back, I've done everything that I wanted to do. And I think that more than anything, that's what's important. And it all fits together, kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. And so I will pass it on to, is it Kwasi?
Kwasi.
Kwasi?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you, ma'am. How's everyone doing? Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Kwasi Wright. I am currently work for OHSU, Oregon Health and Science University. I am a pharmacy technician supervisor. which specializing in specifically chemotherapy. In charge of administer. I don't administer. I prepare, prep chemotherapy for chemo patients throughout the hospital. I also in charge of training, in charge of figuring out new different workflows to make the processes easier. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I'm currently in school to look into healthcare management, and yeah, that's it, nutshell. And I guess I'll pass it on to Marshana. It might pass it to you, or did you already spoke? So
I already spoke. Yeah, we're gonna pass it to Rashida. Last but not least.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Rashida Charles. So I am also a registered nurse. I work for Multnomah County in the health department under the Healthy Birth Initiative program. So I work in a culturally specific African American only home visiting nurse program under the maternal child family health umbrella. So pregnant moms and their children is who our focus is. Pregnant families, I should say, because we do service men as well in our program. And I have been in that role for 10 years. As of September 16th, I'm officially the lead nurse now, and taking on extra responsibilities, which is crazy in the midst of COVID and trying to supervise folks through the computer. I'm learning that role and stepping into that piece as we go. I am also currently in the midst of COVID. I'm in the Emergency Operations Center Maternal Child Health Liaison. So I am between the county and community-based organizations as well as internal folks as far as like what's happening with COVID and response and helping to support that piece. I'm also a certified lactation consultant, CART C tech, whatever they ask me to be on whatever day is kind of what my role is. On the side, I'm also a cheerleading coach, so I get to work with teenagers as well too at Benson High School. My little side fun job I do in the evening. We start on Monday and I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. So excited. Okay, I have a lot of questions for you. Some of you already answered it as you're introducing yourself, so don't be afraid to repeat yourself, but I feel like we should just jump right in. So the next question for everyone, feel free if you, not everyone has to answer if you don't want to, there's more questions, trust and believe. What is something you wish you knew when becoming a young professional? Some of you still feel like you identify in that boat, but what's something you wish you knew as you were going into this process?
Did we just jump in and say something?
Yes, jump in, please.
Okay. I can speak on that. I mean, for me, I wish I was or knew I was aware of how to resource, to reach out to people and let's see, like what I'm thinking of, follow them. I'm sorry, I lost a lot of words, but what's the word? Anyways, reaching out to people in fields that you're interested in and following them for a day, or if you can just seeing how they work and ask questions. I found that it's a lot more personal when you do it on your own time versus if it's you do it through, like, say, through a school where you do an externship. I see some people, I've noticed that some people aren't as interested in because, it's forced versus if it's on your time as a young person, you're coming in on your time and you ask those questions, they're more personal because they can see that this young kid is interested and really wants to know. So I would definitely, if I was younger, learning how to resource and reach out to people to, go that path. And also exploring just different areas, different job opportunities, if you can see what's out there for you. So.
Anyone else want to jump in on that question? I would agree on that one. Definitely job shadowing.
Shadowing. Thank you. I couldn't think of
Yes, I gotcha.
I'll make a comment about that. I wish that I had known that it was okay that I didn't know what I wanted to do at all as a young person. And that, I grew up in an area where everyone went to college and I felt really left behind. And now that I'm older, I understand that I had to go through all of the things that I went through as a younger person to really step into the role that I have now and the power that I have now. I probably wouldn't have started our chapter of the Alliance of Black Nurses if I hadn't waited to really figure out what I wanted to do. So yeah.
I could throw in a comment in there as well as someone who is beginning my professional career. Literally, I just started working a month or so ago, I guess. So I'm literally stepping into this career, professional career. And one thing that comes to mind is that not selling yourself short. Like in terms of your skill set, it's unique for a reason. And one thing that I've learned, I guess this is a culmination of what I've learned over the course of my academic career, which as you get to the doctoral level, it is a profession as well, because you are immersing yourself in research and you're digging deep into solving problems. And one thing that I've learned is to not compare yourself with anyone. Your journey is totally different from everybody else, and it is you are unique. That is what makes you unique. And going into professional career with that in mind sets you on a different trajectory where you have goals that you are pursuing, I guess, and not having to worry about selling yourself short, because in selling yourself short, you are perhaps limiting yourself of opportunities that would be granted to you because you don't think you can make it. And that's the worst. You make yourself not look good, I should say. So that's one thing that I've learned as an early career.
I want to go ahead and jump in on that one because I'm still like, on all these career goals and aspirations. I think the thing that I would, what I would tell myself, younger self, would be that it's going to be okay as long as I'm open to the calling that I'm supposed to have within myself, within the future that I want to achieve for myself. Sometimes resources are not available to us, and then that's more common than not. The resources, especially for BIPOC communities, for Black folks, are not so much tangible and feasible for us to see them. But as long as you keep opening to that calling, as long as you keep asking questions and then following people that actually allow them to see themselves in that environment and see themselves represented in that environment, you will land in other opportunities in which you can actually exert what you want to exert.
Just real quick, I'm going to ask if you're not actually actively speaking, if you could mute yourself, that would be really great so that we don't have any background noise while people are answering questions. Thank you.
I would say trust the process. And I'm all for exploration, but I am also for deciding what you want to do and sticking to that plan. And at any point you can change. Know that you can switch courses if you want to. But there's a lot to say about staying the course and just having the faith that things will work out the way that you envision them to work out. And ask a lot of questions, interview folk who, and find folk who are on a path that you want to be on, and get to know them, get to know who supported them, how they got supported, what have you. But I think there's a lot to say about sticking to what you want, trusting that everything is going to work out.
Go ahead, Rashida, I saw you.
Uh, Yes, I just want to jump in and say that just definitely for me, especially in the medical field and the nursing career, is not being afraid to take a risk and try something different. Just like Danae mentioned earlier, we don't work in the hospital setting, and that sometimes has a negative stigma over it. Even my own family was like, "Why aren't you working in the hospital? Why aren't you applying in the hospital when I finished nursing school?" And I really felt like, oh, I should be in the hospital. But I love my job and love where I am. So being able to take a risk and just try something different and be able to move up where you are in that space is great. And sometimes that risk may be not going to college for you. Sometimes that risk is going to college. It just depends on what works for you. And all the nurses at my job, except one, has experience in maternal child health. So we all were like fresh and brand new, though they asked for like, a lot of times when you're fresh out of college and you're looking for work, or you're fresh out of high school looking for work, they want 20 years of experience, they want master's degrees, they want all this stuff. That experience sometimes can trump that. Sometimes just, what you've done before can trump all those extra credentials that you need. So being able to just go ahead and stick your toe in the water, and sometimes you make more ripples than somebody else, and just you end up getting pulled to the top, is really important. And I tell everyone I work with, don't be afraid to try it, because I just knew I was never going to be a community health nurse, and now I wouldn't be anything else but a community health nurse.
I think I'm the last one. I would say there's life after school. I think when I finished my degree in civil engineering, I was struggling as a civil engineering student. I was not the best at any of those classes, and it made me think I was not going to be a good engineer. I thought if I'm not good at school, I'm not going to be a good engineer. I have a higher job than someone who had a 3.9 GPA at my university. It does not matter how school translates into your grit and your ambition and how much you want to be good at something. You can keep learning so much more in the field actually doing the work than we ever do in our university and school. So it's not a dead end to think that, I'm not going to be good at this job because I wasn't good at it in school. I meet tons of super smart engineers with lots of things after their name, but sometimes I would rather go to my contractors, the ones, people who have the field work, the hands-on experience, because they've seen it, they've done it, they've built it, versus studying it. So there's two different ways to do things, and not any of them is right or wrong, but don't doubt your confidence because of those things.
I second that. I love that. Yeah, everything everyone said, you guys, absolutely. I'm gonna chime in a little bit on there just because I feel like it's worth saying, is that I didn't complete a lot of things. There are a lot of things that I just, I went to school, I did the college thing, it was wonderful, but I didn't complete. I've been to beauty school, that was wonderful, I didn't complete it. I had several jobs that I thought, this is what I'm gonna do, and it didn't work out that way. But I believe it was Fidel who said it, but at the end of it all those things, all those lessons, all the skills that I've gotten along the way, they all are being used and utilized, or have been utilized at some point in my life, depending on where I was. And so just being encouraged that whichever path you take, you're going to glean, you're going to pick up, Jay was just talking about that. You're gonna get something from those things. You're going to continuously learn. Life is about continual learning. It's not always about you're just going to get this one thing and now you're going to run with that. It's going to have lots of twists and turns. And so that's super exciting to hear how each of you in some ways didn't necessarily know exactly what it was going to be for you, but that you've landed in places that you enjoy and are speaking to your own senses, sensibility, and just, you're thriving in what you're choosing to do right now. So very exciting. I want to dive into a question that technically is, I want to dive into the conversation of being a person of color in some of these spaces. I don't even see that on here. So I'm going to wing it because I just want to know. Did you run into any, no, not run into any barriers. I want to know, going into the spaces that you all each are in, your professions, did you see people that looked like you? And if not, how did that affect your desire to enter into that space? let me know if I need to clarify in any way. I would like to hear Jay.
I was gonna say, I'll start first. I went to University of Portland. There were 5 Black students. I thought that was not very many. Little did I know going into the career that that was pretty good. I work for the city of Portland, about 7,000 employees. I think we have less than that Black engineers, and I am the only Black woman engineer who works for the city of Portland. When I was a student, I told you I struggled with some of my classes. I tried to quit. I had a counselor and she told me, she was like, we need people like you in the field. I was like, what does that mean? I knew what she meant, but I wanted her to say it. And she told me, she's like, well, there needs to be a young Jay out there who looks at you working in that field in engineering, making these changes, and they need to be able to see you. And at first I'm like, well, I don't want to just be in a place because of my skin tone. Well, I didn't realize that there really is not very many of us in these fields. And you start seeing more in computer science and stuff and programming, because those are the fields that associated with our phones and things that are every day. But critical infrastructure being designed by people who look like myself, you know, you, everyone here, is really important, because these are the decisions that are helping build what's around us. That is actually building the world around you. It was a struggle in the career. There wasn't anyone who looked like me. There still isn't. So you have to build your own spaces sometimes. I didn't have NSBE at UP. We didn't have enough Black students to create NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. So we also barely had enough people to start a professional chapter, but it took a lot of scouring of people. There are over 60 Black engineers in the Portland metro area. And I had to fight really hard to reach out and network and bother people by saying, hey, I want to talk about your career. And we all had the same experiences. And it actually kept me wanting to stay in the field, because there was a point in my career and I transferred jobs to a group that didn't value me. I was the youngest, I was the brownest, I was the only female managing construction projects. I'd show up to a job and they would ask, oh yeah, we're waiting for the project manager. We're waiting for the project manager. I'm like, I'm Jay Brannon, I'm right here. And they're like, oh, totally expecting a white man who was older, but I was managing this $1 million job. And they just couldn't see it. I would be talking, I'd be starting the meeting, and they would still be like, excuse me. So those type of experiences tried to push me out. I had to create my own space within NSBE, and it's what kind of kept me in there, because I'm like, I'm not alone. There's others of us dealing with the same thing, and we at least can decompress after work and just talk about these experiences, how we want to change and increase the pipeline of others who look like us. And that's kind of like a whole passion that's just led to everything I do outside of work. I say I have a 9 to 5 and I have a 5 to 10 p.m. doing volunteer to try and get this pipeline to be more diverse in all assets. It's not just engineering, it's civic engagement, it's education, it's outreach, it's community, it's involvement. So creating your own space and not being pushed away when you get those microaggressive experiences, it can be hard.
I would say for me, I grew up in the South and grew up in an all Black neighborhood, a large Black neighborhood. And so everyone around me was Black, and I was known by my name and not as that Black guy. And when I got to middle school, everything changed. It was my classes, they had put me in like advanced level classes, and everybody, most people were white. And I was starting to be treated differently, and I couldn't quite name it. And my mother is a child of the 60s, and so, Black Power. And she could definitely put her finger on it, but I couldn't quite accept it. I didn't quite hear that until I really started experiencing it myself. And my father was always Mr. Nice Guy, and so he would never name it, even if it occurred. And growing up in those white spaces, going to a lily white college, I'm very comfortable in those all white spaces. I am conservative by nature, and so I mark my territory, and I expect everyone to respect my space as I respect their spaces. But I will say that there is a lot of benefit to being able to look and see someone in the role that you want to be in. But at the same time, I would caution, especially younger folk, that though that person might be in the role that you want, doesn't mean that that person's going to be your supporter. Many times, that person is not going to be the person that would always go to bat for you. It might be someone of a different ethnicity, a different color, what have you. And I would say definitely try to align people with your set of values, because those are the people who are going to really support you when things get tough. And so, you know, there's a saying, not all skin folk are kinfolk. And I found that out the hard way. I thought that, especially probably in my 30s or so, I thought that when things got really tough that I could count on almost any Black person like I did in my community. And that was not the case. And it took me for a tailspin in many regards. But, you know, all is not lost. Know who you are, know what you want, and stay true to your values.
Thank you, Ms. Wright, for that. I was hoping somebody will reiterate the question real quick before I jumped in, but I second everything that Jay has said, and Mims. I was in the same cohort as Jay at the University of Portland, and from there I moved to Penn State. At Penn State, when I joined the master's program, there was in the mechanical engineering department, it was two of us. I was the only girl and there was another guy. And it was just two of us, the entire department. And he left after the master's. And I don't know, I'm finishing up right now. And I'm not sure if there's any other Black person in the department. So maybe they might be, but I have not checked. But I think I've been the only one ever since 2015. And that did not affect my decision to continue at all, because I knew what the reason as to why I went there. I went there head on. I was going to get my advanced degree in mechanical engineering because, you know, it was something I was interested in. I was not going to let anything deter me from that decision. And just as Jay said, create your space. And I was like, well, let's find this community. And at Penn State, there's the Multicultural Engineering Program. It's in the Center of Engineering Diversity and Inclusion. And in there, they have different associations for undergrads and for graduate students. I immersed myself in that. I got plugged in early on, and I just, found my community, like-minded students who are all there for a PhD, all coming from different corners of the earth. And we just created this group of students to inspire one another, to motivate each other. We're all, it's different, all in STEM, but we found time to just encourage one another, regardless of what we're doing in our different programs. So that's how I think I've coped. And it's been fun being a leader in this student group, and so just venturing out and just thinking about that right now at my since we've been working remotely, I have not yet seen some of my other coworkers who I'll probably see when I move down to California. But thing is, when I interned there in 2014 at NASA, I interned there. I was the only Black person there. And so I don't know, it's been quite a few years and it's changed. years have go past by, but is that going to change my decision for me? No, because I know this is work that is of interest to me. I'm looking at the work that we're doing, and it's cutting edge technology. And that's the thing that I go with. Is this something that's of interest to me? Am I going to have an opportunity to learn? Because if other people are given that opportunity to learn, why not me? Right? And so looking for opportunities to put myself in positions to learn and to improve myself both professionally and in any other way. And the other thing I really love that Mim said was stay true to yourself. Right. And that's how you're going to earn people's respect and draw people onto you, I guess, in a more relatable ways by staying true to yourself. And yeah. Thank you.
So I'll jump in here. So going into nursing, I actually started in high school. We have a lifespan nursing major as a magnet high school. So I was exposed to nursing from high school. Is where I kind of started my passion. And from that point all the way through college, I did not see anyone that looked like me except for one nursing care manager on the floor of one rotation I had through school. So that was really odd to me, but I am born and raised in Portland, and it's rare and hard to see, sometimes a lot of us in the upper areas. We have to fight harder, work harder sometimes just to get where we were. But I was determined to do something different and to get where I wanted to get to. I do remember, I think my graduating class, there were 3 of us total in my nursing graduating class. I also am a University of Portland grad. And so just that sense of just feeling like the Lone Ranger all the time. There were times too, I wanted to quit. There were some tears. I was a commuter student, so I did not live on campus, so I did not connect with a lot of folks who stayed on campus all the time. So it was a struggle going through that piece. I did make connections for those outside of my race, just those who I connected with in the nursing group. Actually, my best friend, I was the maid of honor of her wedding, who I met at University of Portland, has been really great and shared similar experiences as me, but she was not Black and did not experience the same things I did. And then going into the job where I am now, I actually have a very unique experience being that I'm in a culturally specific program. So all the nurses I work with are Black. My supervisor's Black. The director of public health is Black, like all the way up the chain. I mean, that's all I get to see is Black folks all day long. And all my clients I visit are Black. And I knew about the program because I have family who had been in the program, and I had been sending resumes and cover letters before I even graduated that I wanted to be part of this program because it just seemed like something great and a place to be and to be surrounded by your people all day long. So not only do I get to work with Black people all day and then get to visit them in their homes pre-COVID all the time, it's just an amazing experience. And so that makes me want to stay here, wants me to continue to grow in this organization. I always say I have another career move, but in the next 10 years, I really don't see myself leaving with the support that I have with my supervisor, with my coworkers, and the clients that I get to serve every day. It's just a beautiful thing to be able to make a difference within my own community while also, growing myself professionally.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to jump on that question? Because we got way more questions. Okay.
I'll
Great.
be quick, maybe,
Yeah, go
if
ahead.
that's okay. I wanted to echo what Jay said around creating your own spaces. I originally fell into nursing because as a 20-something-year-old person, I was very aware of the poor maternal child outcomes where I was. And so I always knew that I thought I wanted to be a midwife. And so within that, I wanted to deliver culturally responsive care. And that has definitely been the thread that has driven my career and made me want to become an advanced practice nurse and be an NP. And yeah, it's very lonely to be in these spaces. Medicine is very systemically racist and white. And I just really want to look behind me and pull up the folks coming behind that are Black and brown so that we can stop this nonsense, essentially.
Yes, it's absolute nonsense. I appreciate you saying that. I feel like I'm kind of turning us because I feel like you all have probably experienced something where you're just like isolated and you're the only ones creating spaces and having to push back. And I think, and sometimes for young folks, you know, you're in this push and pull around who you are, right? That identity piece, who you stand for. But even now as adults and, you know, Jay and Dorcas and being newly outside of school, what things do you do to take care of yourself? What does self-care look like for you in these spaces? The cat, I have a cat too. She's around here somewhere.
I'll talk about some of my self-care practices. So like I said, I have a team who's more like a family. We do a lot of co-case management. So as far as like workload not being, you know, falling all on one person all the time. So really trying to balance that out. Really engaging with my supervisor when I do need some time. Sick time, mental health time is sick time. And really being intentional about using it and scheduling it. Also just, you know, increasing my knowledge, education in the profession as much as possible, just so I'm making better decisions for the families I'm serving, as well as my practice as it continues to move forward. And then like the typical stuff, I get my nails done, I go get my hair done, I get a massage every month, I get an acupuncture every month, I have cocktails with friends, I travel often, even in the midst of COVID. I am the rebel. I have been on multiple out of the country trips during COVID. And just taking those days, the work will be there tomorrow is one thing I'm really pushing as this new role of lead nurse. Like if you are behind on your charting, don't schedule 4 more clients tomorrow. Work on what needs to be done right now. And don't pile on and pile on and pile on the work. And then taking those days off. Use them, because when you're gone, they just don't fill your position with somebody else and the work will continue. So take your time off now and take those breaks when you need to. And I have a cat too. She's usually scratching my chair, but she's sleeping in my bed right now.
I'm gonna jump in on that one because I might be a little different from like what the stereotypical self-care looks like. For me, self-care, especially in those environments where I feel that I'm the only one, it's bringing more significance to the work that I'm doing. You know, whether it's resourcing, whether it's reading, whether it's writing. Journaling has been a lot of support for me along the years, and that's something that I endure even more because I can put all the thoughts and ideas and things like that, and they're no longer hold any strength on within myself. I can actually take it out and think about what I write and then go back and revisit that. But not only that, I try to make sure that I bring more and more and more significance and excellent to the work that I do. That's something that with me brings more self-care because I want to be able to have like all these perceptions and ideas that people might perceive me as such um, dissipate and only focus on the who am I as with my core values and beliefs. And I do like to run a lot. I do like to bike now a lot. I've been into that. And I do like to reflect, spiritually reflect a lot about a lot of things. Because I think that when those merge, where there is like that aspect of your self and then what you're meant to do and called to do, within this earth, when those merge together, you do the best work that you can possibly do. And there's no barriers. We talked about, being the only one. In reality, all of us in this room, at some point, we've been the only one, and that is, it's something that it will not accepting, but it will portray, as the system goes along. It's been 400 years and plus. And I wanted to refer to like Mintz when he said I'm comfortable with white folks around me. That doesn't mean that I'm accepting the reality that we are a minority in a predominantly white male dominance field when it comes to a field of STEM. So comfortability, it doesn't mean that it's, like that we accept, it's acceptance, So being able to find yourself where you can take care of yourself and realizing that comfortability being around that, and sometimes discomfort being around that doesn't mean that you have to accept it. It's important to self-care, and that's kind of like one of the things that I always look forward to, and find ways in which I can break that barrier. I love challenges, and I'm pretty sure that that's what we're here for, and that's what we go to Mintz, like all these core values, like that's what we are, people that we are kind of like put together in this room, to talk about those things, because somewhat we align in a lot of core values. I heard that from someone that says, whenever you go to on a walk, there are two things that happen: whether you adjust to someone else's pace or they adjust to your pace. So there are two things that happen, and it's the matter of like, who do you want to adjust to? What's the mentor that you want to emulate and align and bounce ideas? That's, for me, it's also a major relief of self-care, because a mentor that can look like me, I can bounce ideas that have, like being able to experience beforehand what I've been able to experience. There's no successes without successors. So that's one of those things that we always, that I'm, at least for myself, I look forward to, as far as like mental health and like take care of my own, for sure.
Yeah, well, it seems like we have a lot of A-type personalities too. I feel very much at home in this, with you guys. So self-care for me is really coming into recognizing, so really my work is my passion, and I think it's almost impossible for me to separate the two. So when I'm doing something really well in my work, that's therapeutic for me. And I think that that's more therapeutic than taking a walk. Because I'm like, yeah, I killed that. That was great. And so that, for me, is self-care. I have started taking long walks. And so you can find me often along Marine Drive. That's one of my favorite walks. Yeah, another thing that's become very therapeutic to me is calling out and identifying racism. I was I was in corporate America when it came to me that this isn't just racism, this is white supremacy. This is, people walking around feeling like they're born to rule, to control. And I had never felt that way before until I entered corporate America. And it's through that journey that I learned to really call out white supremacy. And so now it's become what I call my superpower, because it makes me feel good to call it out and to explain to people, white folk, here's what you're doing And you're not the first one to do it. You're following a script, and here's the system that's in front of us all. And you're just an agent of that system. You can cut it out if you want to. I'm just going to say the quiet parts out loud.
Anyone else on self-care? Oh, go ahead.
I'll share. I really appreciate what you said, Fidel, and you too, Mims, about when you're passionate about what you do, you really want to show up with your full self. And that definitely is the driver for me in terms of self-care, which is just taking care of myself and trying to eat as healthy as I can and move my body. But over the past year, I have developed a Tai Chi practice that has been very rewarding, and taking that time in that meditative space and that quietude. I think that is really vital.
Like any kind of stretching too, and breathing, just being still to stretch and breathe and stretching your back. You know how much you don't stretch out your back? So bending over and touching your toes, please practice that. Please do it. Even when you touch your toes on the floor versus standing, different muscles. So practice breathing and touching your toes.
It's funny that you should say that, because I find that I hold my breath a lot. And so I had to actually buy a wristband that says, just breathe. Yeah.
I have a sticky note on my computer that just says breathe, like every day. So when I see it, okay.
Yeah. I want to interject a little bit about self-care practices. Although I do enjoy the many jobs that I have, because I have 17 jobs, and you have to probably be over 35 for that to even make sense, what I just said. But for me, it is removing myself completely. Like, stop. Like, I literally just stop everything. I don't call me, don't text me. I don't want to think about work. I don't want to do anything that has to do with anything, except laughing or cackling with my friends. And I think it is important to take time to surround yourself with really amazing people who emotionally don't drain you. I think your downtime really should be prep time. So I agree with like what Fidel said about increasing your own capacity. I think is very important. And so that you can show up and in your job, you feel good. But again, when it gets a little overwhelming, and I'm pretty sure each of us at some point have felt that overwhelm, it is okay to stop, right? I love what Vishita said about planning and taking your time, your sick days, taking your, your time off, your mental health days. Like, it's okay to stop. It's okay to just not do anything, right? So that when you do recharge yourself and you bring that energy back to what you're connected to, you can bring it wholeheartedly, knowing that you've rested. Because I do find that sometimes we think we're off, we have our day off or our time off, but we're still constantly thinking about our work. And so really taking that time to recharge, I think, is extremely important. And breathing, yes, absolutely breathe. So thank you all for those responses. I really, really, really appreciate it. I think that's really, really valuable, and hopefully students will take that into their planning and even just in school in general, right? Just whatever the work is for them, that they're really able to take that in. We're going to move on to another question. What is something that in the role that you're currently in that you're still learning? Just one thing right now that life is showing you and teaching you.
I can go ahead and take a stab at this. One thing that I am learning is to never stop learning. So that's very important. I know depending on what field you're in, this could be something similar that you encountered. Is never stop learning. For me, being a mechanical engineer, you can see easily, depending on what route people have taken, but so many people who've perhaps been in the field for 30 plus years have found themselves perhaps doing something that's become like a routine, right? Which is not bad. But one thing that I always keep in my mind, and that I was told a lot as I embarked on this doctoral degree journey, is that, oh, you're going to narrow down your skills. You're going to, not so many people are going to be interested because you're going to be overqualified or blah, 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 blah. And of course, that sort of demotivates you. Why am I even doing this? Then you lose interest in something that I initially had interest in, but then I was like, well, let's see. Well, as a matter of fact, I'm telling you, it has not narrowed down anything for me, but open more doors of opportunity because of the skill set, right? And that is one of the reasons why I'm saying never stop learning, because there's so many opportunities that are out there to learn, to improve yourself, right? And one thing is, for me, is I want to avoid stagnation as much as possible. Like that's getting comfortable or giving up on a challenge. I don't want to get into that because that's challenging. I don't want to, learn a new trick, or, I find myself in this comfort zone where I'm comfortable. How is it going to be if I'm doing this? I don't, I'm fine where I am. But for me, I'm like, I want to step out there. What else is there? What am I going to go with? Space? I don't know yet. I was talking to my mom earlier. It's like, tell your supervisor, no, not yet. My child is not doing that. It's like, we'll see in 20 years. But anyway, never stop learning. That's one of the things that I always try to do, is never stop learning and finding, always having a question, like, what is happening here? Why? I guess that's the analytical part of me as a researcher, and things like always trying to solve a problem, and by doing so you have an opportunity to learn about different things. So that's what I'm still learning as I finish one career, entering into another, is I know I'm going to take that with me, not only in my professional career, but even as a person. You meet so many different people from different walks of life. Having that, being open-minded and willing to learn what their culture is or where they're from, and it kind of opens your mind up to different things, which is good, which I enjoy. Yeah.
I want to jump in on that and piggyback on that. And by the way, one of my volunteer champions are like listening to me. I hope that I don't do it. Had this crazy issue join in. I think I wanted just to piggyback on what you said. And it reminds me of this quote that said that you're never too old to learn, and then you're never too young to teach. That's something that I will always like. It's always surprising me, as we move forward, the learning doesn't stop because I got a doctorate degree or a master's degree in biochemistry, or like pursuing having this like organizations and so forth. The learning starts and ends whenever you want to, and you can learn from every single aspect of every single walk of life. And that's pretty much the I would say the message to these like young aspiring to be professionals, that as long as you keep acquiring knowledge, you will be in a position in which you can actually enrich not only others but enrich yourself. And another thing that I wanted to kind of like pretty much talk about that, because I'm a little bit of a control freak sometimes when it comes to like, when it comes to operationally speaking, as far as like the organization that I lead, it's just sometimes to trust the my team that they can actually do their best work. So that's what, like they're here for a reason. And as we all are enduring in this kind of like, whether it's organization or professional development, things like that, there are mistakes that they will happen. Mistakes will happen. And that's what I try more and more to teach myself, and to keep going at it with that attitude, because they're trusting me to lead and make the best decision for them within that such a strong responsibility that I have within my team and the community that I serve. It's the same thing that I want them to do, empowering the young underrepresented in the field of STEM, in the BIPOC communities. It comes within your team. So for me, it's like trusting that my team can do their best work. It's something that I still want to learn, and then still want to be able to embrace more and more. So those are kind of like the two things that I definitely still learning. Not easy, because we have a lot of hands in a lot of different things, and I really want to make sure that everything goes as intentional. I always say to my team, intention drives results. So when we have set the right intentions, and that can go into our personal lives, that can go into our professional lives, when you put the right intention, you're always gonna find good results. Just wait for it, for sure.
Boise, I hate to put you on the spot, but I wanted to invite you to answer the question of what do you think you're still learning in your role? We haven't heard from you in a while. You're on mute. We can't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry about that. For me, in my role, it's patience. I work at a very diverse department where we have a lot of people from all over the country, from Iran, from Somalia to Croatia. And a lot of these people are in their native countries are doctors, nurse practitioners. So they come over here and they're pharmacy techs, and so they're very headstrong and can be very dominant. So it's you have to be patient and understanding and respect that that's what they were in their country, and you have to know how to come to the level and come to compromise, and it comes down to respect. And so it's patience and understanding that where these people came from and where they're speaking from. So it's definitely a challenge, but it also gives you the opportunity to grow and to be a better supervisor, and hopefully someday be manager, and having to deal with type of headstrong people. So that's, let's say.
I'll jump in. I'm still learning how to say no to things. I think I was early on in my career trying to prove myself and to do as much as I could to show I'm this good, I can do these projects, I can do all this. But I'm at the point now where I'm like, I don't really need to say yes to everything, especially right now in this movement of white folks are trying to prove how woke and diverse they are. They really like figureheads to come and talk about something or to be on their committee so I can be the one person in the room. Like I'm going to choose to be in a space where I'm the only one. I just told you I'm creating spaces where I'm not the only one. So I have to be very strategic in saying no, and I'm still working on saying no and making sure that if I say yes to this thing, does it further the goals that I really want to do? Is it part of the mission? Is it for the work? And so I'm working on saying no. And then with that, I'm also working on delegating. No, but here's a person who might be able to do this because they're trying to advance their career in that way or something. And I'm trying to delegate to find the right person for something else, to open up an opportunity for someone else who might be interested. So those are things I'm learning right now.
Listen, here, sister. Here. Woo. Finding people who listen. We don't have to do everything. There are much more capable people. Listen, this is just personal testimony. Marshana Williams is a blessing to my life. I'm going to publicly say this. It's going to go out amongst the people. She's a blessing to my life. I never schedule anything. I let Marshana do it because she's faster. If I have to set up a schedule, it's going to take 30 minutes. Marshana does it in 20 seconds. So that's a true delegation story of anytime we set an appointment, Marshana creates it because she's faster at it. And I think a beautiful lesson is stop trying. I mean, yes, we want to grow, we want to learn. I know how to make and set a schedule. I can totally create a meeting, but if I have someone around me who's faster, take your hands off of it and allow them to work, do what they're great at, right? And it just makes life so much easier, takes that stress off. So here, Jay, thank you so much for saying that about delegation. Absolutely. Kwesi, I agree 100% about dealing with people who are different than you, right? We are not alone. When we're going, Mims might be the only one who doesn't have to deal with people.
Deal with a lot of people.
Yeah, so but at the end of the day, really, learning to respect others, right? Remembering that we're all the same at the core of us, right? Each person, every human desires the same thing, right? We all want respect. We all want someone to hear us. We all want to be acknowledged, right? And so once we do that and we set our good intentions, I love, you guys are saying so many great things right now, because it is absolutely true. How we show up in the world really is a reflection of what we think. And so we don't want to get too deep into that, but definitely, if you walk around saying, I hate people, guess what? You're going to run into some hateful people. It's just kind of what it is, but if you're learning how to come up and show up with an attitude of respect and kindness, like that probably has been the biggest lesson, is that, again, how I do one thing is how I'm going to do everything. And the spirit in which I choose to show up is definitely going to be reciprocated. If I'm having a bad day and I show up with a terrible attitude, guess what? That's the energy that I'm attracting around me. So definitely in my daily spaces, I'm learning to check myself, right? Be the leader of me and my own personal emotions, my own actions, and do my best to bring light into every space. Like that probably, I think, is the biggest lesson of, like, I may not be able to get everything done, but I can absolutely control myself. So great lesson. Anyone else, please, would love to hear some other responses on how you are showing up.
I can share. One of my mantras is congratulations, you're not a robot, that I tell myself. Healthcare is very unforgiving about mistakes, and looking at mistakes and failure as an opportunity to grow and be stronger is definitely something that I work hard on, because excellence comes in a lot of different forms.
I'll jump in. Something I've definitely learning over the 10 years being in the government work and partnering that with healthcare is what is normal, what's policy is not always right. And it's okay to challenge that. It's okay to use your voice and speak up. I mean, I know, like, I'm slowly gaining my voice even more and more, and it's the beauty of having a full team where if I'm speaking, I got 5 other sisters behind me that's going to back me up and whatever I'm saying and what's going on. Discrimination, racism, inequities, all that shows up in multiple different ways. And a lot of times, especially as a culture where we have this overarching word, I say resilient, we just kind of go with it. We just kind of, deal with it. But I'm like sick of being resilient, and I'm sick of hearing resilient when it's like, you can do something different so I can have a better experience and whatever that may be. And so learning that what's important for me, for my people or the clients I serve or the population I'm in general may not be the same for someone else, and getting them to understand and recognize that, hey, you may need to change your birthing policies in the hospital, and you may need to change how often you see your clients, so that way we can have better birth outcomes in the end. I've been on a conference this whole week, and we did a poster presentation today on racism in healthcare, and folks were like, oh my gosh, how did you guys get your preterm birth rates to be so low? One, all of us nurses are Black, so they get to speak to a nurse every single month just about their healthcare longer than 15 minutes. So that makes a big difference when they understand that what this pain really means, when I should call somebody, when the healthcare system in general should be responding to stuff like that. If we take those feedbacks, that feedback we get from our clients, and then we feed it at the pipeline, to the point where making policy changes in hospitals, to the point where speaking to the provider, to we're going to case conferences just to make sure that there's differences happening and that the next person or their experience is better. And so we're not having, the disparities in healthcare and high turnover and, unfortunately babies dying and moms dying and all these other things that happen. So just really using your voice to kind of combat that. Sometimes your system is not normal. Sometimes your system is not right. And it's okay to open your mouth and say something and challenge it. Of course, you got to grow and get stronger to do that. But, having that team around you and talking to people about it really does make a difference.
Yeah, thank you. I think one thing too, I can contribute to the learning piece is falling in love with the process. You have to be okay with the ambiguity and being uncomfortable because change hurts, but there's always something on the other side. And I think that's a constant thing we're learning, because I think there is type A. I can only plan so much, but I have to be disconnected to the outcome if I still want to come up happy, because I will be mad if something doesn't go my way. So when something doesn't go my way, it's probably because I didn't know it was going to happen, because I'm not God. I can't predict everything, but I know there's a lesson in it, and that it's okay. And I can embrace that and take it on as I go. So just wanted to offer that up. Last question before we open it up for Q&A for our audience that are here with us. Thank you so much. As we get close, how did y'all get where you are? What steps did you take to get where you are? Some of you have a long list, and some of you are like, I tried everything. Some of you are probably like, God did it. I don't know. Yeah, let us know. How'd you get there?
For me, it was just really opportunity. I started off in middle school. I said I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And when I entered college, I took an exam that said that my core being, which it really is an analyst. And I said, well, that makes sense. And so they said psychiatrist or CFO of, organization. And those felt good for me. So I said, medicine and an MBA. And so with the medicine, I went as high as my skills, not necessarily my intellect, but my skills could take me. I learned very late in the game that I had no study habits. And, not on the professional level that I needed to do well in medical school. And so got accepted to medical school, and thankfully they attached a summer enrichment program where we were able to try me out on the track. And I didn't fare so well. And they're like, well, it's like you never attended. So take some more classes, do what you need to do. And when I did that, I learned, well, business is okay. I don't, medicine was a lot more than I thought it would be. It was very consuming. I dated a physician, and she said her mother was a physician, and she said, medicine is a very jealous mistress. And I never really took that into consideration. Dating her, she would be up like that, answering a call from a distressed mother about her child. And I was like, I don't need that. I don't need that to be happy. And so, and all the other things just really just came together in this miraculous way. And so I can't say that I predetermined this, but I wouldn't want to be any other place right now. So I'd say trust the process, go for what you want, but be ready for, to take those other opportunities as they arise.
I'll go if that's okay. I think I took a pretty meandering path. I didn't become a nurse until I was 33. And even leading up to taking all the science courses, the pre-nursing courses, I took them pretty slowly. They were really intense science courses. And I knew I needed that foundation, and I needed to not over challenge myself. And then I took an affordable route too. I entered into an associate's degree program, and I didn't get accepted the first time I applied. I had no intentions once I became a nurse of continuing my education. I was really happy in the work that I was doing in labor and delivery. And it took me by surprise when I left. And I also worked with the county in the student health program. And I thought, great, I have the utmost respect for community health nursing. I think it's the foundation of everything. And I was really excited to be a part of that. But it took me by surprise when I decided that I wanted to go back and advance my degree and become a nurse practitioner. So, and I needed to go through all of that to have the confidence that I have today.
So I'll go. I grew up in Portland, Northeast Portland. My mom was really adamant, she's Filipina, that I was going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. So she kind of made sure to drive me clear across town to Winter Haven Middle School, to science tech focused school in Portland Public. And there she was like, you play with Legos all day, you can go play with Legos and make robots. So I did Lego robotics, and that kind of showed me mechanical engineering at a pretty young age that I don't think most kids have. And I also am really grateful that my mom kind of had this vision for me, because a lot of kids, you know, it's hard to come up with what you want to do. It kind of helps if you have someone who's pushing that this is what you're going to do. And because she had me so young, she knew that I was living some of her dreams for her, because she had me as a teenager, and this is what she wanted to do. It's what was her dream for me. I kind of pushed away from mechanical engineering because I saw a lot of the stuff was the military sponsoring things, and I wasn't super interested in that. I wanted to do something that gave back to people. So I picked civil. I knew it was going to be engineering because I definitely had an interest. It was fun to build things, and I liked problem solving. I was good at math, at least in high school. College told me that you're okay at math. So I got to college and I picked civil with an environmental focus because I figured I want to help the world and do some environmental stuff that was going to improve our world. College was hard, not amazing at vector calc or differential equations. It's not for me. I passed it. I retook classes. I was not, so don't give up. I tried to quit. I was like, I'll do physics. And the counselor was like, that's not any different. And she gave me the whole spiel about how there needs to be more folks who look like me to do it. So yeah, I retook classes. I think I retook about 3 classes at University of Portland in math. And I still graduated on time with 4 years. I just had like a 22 credit course load once and 21 credits while working 20 hours a week at Pal's bookstore till 11 p.m. So I picked the affordable route because I could not afford to drop out. I could not afford to let my parents down, who had been pretty fighting for me to get this degree, letting me live at home so that the tuition would be cheaper. I had a lot of scholarships, about 95% covered, but 5% out of $160,000 is still quite a bit. So I had to work. And the moment graduation started coming, I got really scared because I'm like, I need to make money because there's a lot riding on this. I can't keep living at my parents' house. I'm graduated, that ticket is done. So I applied for jobs about 3 months before graduating because I could not afford to have any gap. So I accepted a job while I was still a student as a contract engineering technician. And I took one of the first jobs that came to me. I was so nervous about getting a job, and I ended up in construction. something that I didn't think I was going to choose. That is not changing the world and environmental systems with low carbon footprint or any of that. But it turns out I loved it. Not everyone can do construction with the type of personalities that are out there. I have been told I was bossy as a kid. Bossy works really well in construction.
Things done.
It was such a good fit, and it just kind of found me because I was so nervous and desperate to not have big money and not make this investment worth it to my parents, and I ended up loving it. And it did happen to be environmental too, because I was constructing wastewater systems, treating water, and people need clean water. People want to flush the toilet and it go to the right places. So I ended up doing kind of what I wanted to do, but it was not exactly what I thought how it was going to be. And then I pivoted from construction in the last 2 years also. There's a lot of stress that goes with having crews that work till midnight on Fridays. And there's a lot of just being tired of being the only one at the table who looks like yourself and having to always push and fight no matter how many millions of dollars of projects I've gotten done. I also kept getting told that construction isn't real engineering. And I was like, well, I can do real engineering. I have a degree. I can do it. So I was like, let me figure out if I can get into design. And my old professor became the division manager for the City of Portland Bureau of Environmental Services. And he was like, you were a great student in my class. He's like, that was one of the few classes I was good at. But he kind of vouched for me to at least give me an opportunity to interview. And I got a position in design. And it's very hard to pivot from construction into design. Normally you kind of get stuck in construction because it is more of a personality. Some people don't think it's always as technical. So I pivoted in the last 2 years, and I'm really enjoying design, and I'm still learning and kicking out projects faster than a lot of other designers because I have that construction experience. I go out in the field and look at my projects as opposed to pull up the as-builts for things that were built 20 years ago. Things look a lot different after 20 years in the field. So that's how I got to where I am now.
I could talk a little bit about to how I got to where I am now. I also went to University of Portland, 2011 to 2015, got my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. In 2014, I got the opportunity to intern at NASA Ames Research Center in the aeromechanics branch. And that opportunity opened my mind up to research. Coming back that fall of 2014, I remember talking to one of my instructors at University of Portland and telling them about my experience and how I would like to know more about research and what is it like. And she shared with me how she had done a postdoc and all grad school and stuff, and to consider it. And at that time, it was nearing the end of, I think we were graduating in the spring. So we were being pushed to start looking for jobs. And I remember going for an interview at Intel. And as the interview was finishing up, she was like, have you thought of getting an advanced degree? I was like, yes, I would like to get an advanced degree. And she actually was like, actually, I advise you should go do it. I was like, interesting. Then I went over and looked into it. And that's how I ended up at Penn State. And some of the other interns who were with me at my internship at NASA Ames were from Penn State. So they told me about the different programs. And I could have chosen to do a different degree, but I chose to stick with mechanical because of the versatility. And I was mostly interested in design and manufacturing. And this is one thing, if there's any student out there listening, is do not, I would like to mention that failure is inevitable. Like Jay said, nothing comes easy. If it does, sit down and rethink what you're doing. But failure is going to be inevitable, but that should not stop you from pursuing what you were interested in pursuing. So I went to Pennsylvania, first time being away from home in the middle of nowhere. I don't know where I am. I embarked on this journey. And I remember after applying, I was like, I don't know what I have done. I don't know if I'll be able to do it. right? And I called the school and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the PhD. Can you change that to a master's? The lady laughed at me. She's like, you'll be fine. No, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. Change it to the master's. She did. So I ended up starting out in the master's. If I tell you, after 2 years, I agreed to do the PhD. So that's one thing that I think back and I'm like, I thought initially that I was going to fail. I don't know where that came from, but that's something that I spoke into myself, or perhaps from a high school professor who told me I'll never make it into mechanical engineering. So that kind of crept back in. And another thing is, don't listen to all the negative things that are going to be said. If you're a student, it's going to come at you, right? Somebody's going to have something to say. Don't listen to it, because it's going to deter you from your journey, from pursuing what you really want. So I went ahead, and here I am. Gotten a PhD, finish up my doctoral degree in mechanical engineering. Been doing great research, learning amazing things about additive manufacturing and how it's being used in design, different material, structural design, and things like that. And it's very interesting. And another thing is that another big point is make sure you prioritize making valuable connections, because you never know where we'll end up. I never thought for once that I would end up at NASA at the same location I was in 2014 after 7 years. I never thought about that. But to tell you that I just got an email from my old supervisor this past April or May. He's like, hey, I have your resume here. Do you have time to talk? I was like, which resume do you have? Because I have updated it. Whichever recent one, let's just talk. And the conversation later on, having that conversation with him and realizing that was the actual interview, right? And so that's the importance of making connections and keeping them, because you never know that you need that connection in the near future, because somebody knows somebody who may open that door of opportunity for you. And long story short, and the way the process worked out, like Marshana said, God, I guess God did it, because I was like, I'm going to put my hands back and talk to this wonderful supervisor of mine and just chat about the last time we had seen each other in 2014, how we're getting old because it's been 7 years, and how I continued on with my PhD and the amazing stuff that I'm doing and whatever's happening in California. Well, do you want to be part of the program here in the aeromechanics branch? I'm like, yes, whatever it is. And so I'm on board now. And the amazing thing is that I'm appreciative of is the work environment, the supportive work environment that rarely, for me, I hardly heard of a case such as mine where you are in the middle of finishing your degree and then getting onboarded into a full-time job, right? And so the support that I have from my advisor over at Penn State and the team that I'm working with here at Ames, of course, everything is virtual, and they recognize that the pandemic has a major effect in shifting schedules around, but then the immense support, and I'm very appreciative of the environment, and which makes me think to myself that I think you must have done a good job into, because that's the number one thing. If you're trying to look for some place to work, first look at the people you're going to work with or around, because that's going to sort of define the environment and how you're going to thrive, right? So I guess that's where I am right now, and it's good. It's good. Another thing that I said earlier on in terms of failure gives you a chance to grow personally and professionally, because then you realize this is where you look at it from the positive side, where like I fell short here, but how do I bounce back? How am I going to learn from what I did not do? And failing does not mean you did something wrong. It may mean that shifting maybe your mindset, or working with other people, depending on if you're working in a group or individually. But from my research point of view, where you're working on a project by yourself, you sort of be like, man, this code, I'm writing a piece of code and it did work, I'm a failure. Whoa, that is taking it way out of super contest. Like, how can you write a piece of code and it fails, and then you think of yourself as a failure? No, that's the negative talk about yourself that you want to keep away from. So that's a little bit about of how I got to where I am. And one other thing I talked about it earlier. Sorry, I'm going on. Is the community, finding your community and the community that you're part of. That for me, moving from University of Portland to a much larger school that is Penn State, with so many people, so many opportunities. I found my community in that multicultural engineering program that I mentioned, specifically the Multicultural Engineering Graduate Association, that I had the chance to be the president of for 3 years. And in that, I worked especially with students, graduate students, multicultural students, of African descent, of Hispanic, Latino descent, and international, right? And so finding that community, we know we are all like-minded. We are getting our degrees in different STEM fields, but we can learn from one another regardless of our backgrounds. And that, I think, has kept me to maintain a positive attitude on so many different things, being the only Black girl in the department in my cohort and whatnot, but maintaining a positive mentality and always being on the lookout, to always looking on the bright side of things. I think those are one of the things that have contributed to get me where I am right now.
I want to go ahead and jump in because my experience has been a little bit different, I think, from every one of you guys. And I have the pleasure to share with you guys. I'm originally from Cuba, and when I was growing up, I wanted it to do big things, right? As anyone, when they're like in their younger selves, and then try to discover the world. And my mom and who raised me, who was my grandfather, he was a nerd by by example. He would like read books and books and books to me about like human history and about philosophy and about all these different things that within our my eyes I couldn't see possible, because Cuba is a communist country, really restricted. We had a lot of challenges and restrictions within that, but I only could see myself and imagining myself in a different position, and an opportunity presented itself when I actually came to the States. But before that, it was because of the amount of I would say wisdom and knowledge that my grandfather and my mom were able always to daunt on me. I finished high school at a really accelerated program that allowed me to get into dental school in Cuba, in a really good position. I was actually, when I moved to the States, I was working with patients as we speak. And as many professionals, as like Quiz was saying, they have their degrees and all those professional backgrounds back in their country, and then when they come here, they have to start from zero again. And myself, I had to learn English for the very first time. I couldn't even say yes 9 years ago. I had to find a way in which I could, like all those dreams and aspiration become a reality now that I am in the so-called country of opportunities. And that's what I got myself into the PCC, which I started learning English. Then I transferred to PSU. I was going to I thought that I was going to just jump right back into my dental field and then finish up, get my DMD. And then I also wanted to do a little bit of a PhD and then, like have that under my belt right away. And that didn't happen. I had to then move to PSU, earn a biochemistry engineer degree, which At the time, I didn't understand the concept of undergrad, so how to do that. Then earn a master's in biochemistry engineering and still pursuing a dental career. So it was totally different what I thought that it would be, and I think that a lot of us can relate to those things, And um, uh, I would say 2-3 years ago, I got in contact with. I also became a mentor in organic chemistry, and then I would tutor, and then I became the president of the LSAMP, which is a minority group in Portland State University. So from there, I got the Black Excellent Award and all these different things, and I got in contact with this capstone and leadership program that allowed me to be in contact with the students that I actually we served for, and the schools that we served for, and it was kind of like appealing to me and revealing to me that access changes things. For me, when I was in my journey here, and even back home, even though we didn't have a lot of access to technology and things like that, the access that my grandfather provided to me as far as knowledge allowed me to keep enduring and then keep being resilient. And then when I came here, the access to be able to, apply for different programs, such as, like the IRCO, which is the immigrant organization that I went through to learn. And then the SOAR, which is a sponsor organized to assist refugees, that I went through as well. And all these amazing organizations, that shaped the way in which I could actually have access to resources that allow me to get to where I'm at and where I'm going. It's important, the sooner or the earlier we can provide those access to the students that we work with and we work for, the better position they are to discover what their passions and talents are, all those things. So for me, it has not been an easy journey, has not been the journey of, yes, I graduated here, went here, I actually had my degree and I had to come back and do it all over again. It was really kind of like heartbreaking at first, but then that, as we said, builds resilient and like that passion. I heard from someone, I think it was Steve Jobs, said, like you have to have a passion of what you do, because that passion will keep you going when there's challenges will come your way, and challenges will be. That's the matter of fact. Whether you're African American, whether you're Latino, sometimes whether you're white, whether you're Pacific Islander, all these different challenges, even though they come in a different scale, and we're not trying to compare which one is best and which one is worse and things like that. We know that we have those challenges more promptly, and we have eminent challenges farther greater than folks that are in the field, or they are in the field and they're predominantly field, and then you are trying to raise your voice. And that's something that I always kind of like try to emulate, and that's what we say, what I say all the time. And I think I picked that from someone, that said something on the lines of, in order for you to do something that you've never done, you have to become someone that you have never been, so in that regards, we do have become someone that we have never been, because we wanted to do something that we have never done, and whether it's, biochemistry engineering, myself, and then pursuing a dental career, whether it's, like working at NASA, what an accomplishment. I feel even proud of you and for you, like that quote from Maya Angelou, when you see me coming, I come as one, but I stand as a million. So I can see a resemblance in you. And whether it's an engineer, whether it's, like a pharmaceutical, and all these different things where we break barriers and then we have those access, and not only that, but allowing ourselves to go back and provide lesser challenges, because our students, our community, our families will have those, but the lesser challenges they can go through, as I said, there's not success without successors. Those are the main important things. So my path is totally different, but somewhat I'm here standing, and then we'll go on for sure.
All right, Denaya, will you go ahead and tell your story, please?
Say that one more time.
Denaya, excuse me, Denaya, can you go ahead and share your story?
Share my story.
Share how, did you already share how you became a nurse?
I did, yeah.
Okay, well, because we have very little time, so I want to make sure we're getting everybody.
Thank
Rashida,
you.
can you go ahead and share how you became a nurse?
Yes. So my story, so like I said, I went to a technical high school. So for middle school, in order to go to Benton High School, you have, back in the day, you had to apply in order to get into the high school, and then you actually have to apply to get into the healthcare field. So I was thinking about healthcare in that sense, and that my dad said, this is the school you're going to, so you need to figure out what you want to do. So I didn't really have a choice in that sense, and so healthcare is what I was drawn to. And so at Benson, once you get through your first 2 years, you then have to apply for the major that you want. And there's 4 different areas you pick. And I picked lifespan nursing, which I was accepted into. And so the focus was all on nursing my senior year of high school. And then my teacher, my nursing teachers, who encouraged me to apply to University of Portland, just because they have a really top, like they're like in the top 10 of nursing schools in the country, as far as like their graduates being able to find careers after finishing, and just folks passing their NCLEX afterwards. And so then went on to University of Portland. I consider it like a little roadblock in the midst. I end up having to withdraw from school, I think middle through my junior year. So I was out of school for about 1.5 years. I did take some community college classes in the midst, and then I was able, because of my parents, to re-enroll. They actually had a meeting with the dean. I don't know how, because I tried for 1.5 years too. And I wrote some letters and then was readmitted into the school, and then was able to finish. I'm only 2 years behind what I would have originally. And then, like I said, before I graduated, I was already applying for the job at the county. I did not get it right away because I did not take my test to be licensed until August, and I graduated in May, and they were looking for someone immediately. And I started off, I've always done community health. So I did like flu clinics, I've done fragile kids in the home, all kinds of other little jobs, just to kind of keep the skills fresh, and 2, because yes, as Jay said, you can get tons of scholarships, but at $100,000 a year, it don't really look like nothing when those student loans start kicking in. You got to find a job immediately. And so I did that for a while, and then another position came up. So because I was communicating with the folks at the county before that, hey, I'm interested, here's my cover letter, here's my resume, I want to be there, then she let me know when the position became open. While I was in school, I had no passion for community health. It just seemed boring to me. It didn't seem like something interesting. And just because when we were first introduced to it in school, it was really policy level work, more environmental health, and that just did not attract me. However, my senior year, my rotation was with a community-based organization with Albina Head Start. And I got to go out with some of the nurse consultants, and I've always had a passion for teaching. I always said if I didn't finish nursing school, I was going to be a teacher. And so I had a passion for teaching, and then that relationship piece really just struck me as just like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. I would love to do this for the rest of my life. And so really trying to find a balance between I get to teach people and I get to build relationships. And the beauty of being where I am is I get to see my interventions actually play out. I always, when I talk at nursing schools, I say the hospital's boring. It's not. But to me, it was a little robotic when I was in school. It's like the same thing, depending on what floor you're on every day. You're giving meds, you're doing PT, you're doing OT, then you're sending folks off and home. And you really never know if all your interventions actually made a difference in that person's life, or if they actually kept up with, what you were teaching and trying to help them out with. Whereas where I am now, I get to be with these people until they're from the pregnancy until their child turns 2. So I get to see what those birth outcomes are. I get to see the development of that child. And sometimes they get pregnant again because they don't listen to me and they don't they don't plan. And then I get to see the next child. So I get to see some of those children past those 2 years, you know, see them at their first day of kindergarten, or, you know, a teenager who was pregnant who finished high school or got their GED, or someone who's opened their business, you know, just doing great things. So that challenging piece, that constant change in community health is really what drew me here. I have a feeling I'm going to stay in community health somehow, some way, forever. I don't think this is my end, but I do still want to go back and teach some in some capacity.
All right, last but not least, Mr. Kwesi Wright, if you can talk a little bit how you got into that space, what education you went through, and yeah, how'd you become what you're doing?
All right. So my story is, it's with a lot of people maybe how their route they're taking. I started off in high school. There was a program where you went to school half the day and you worked in the hospital for the other half of the day. So worked at the hospital, worked in the pharmacy, worked in surgery, their billing department. So that's where I found the love for pharmacy. I worked in pharmacy, and you were able to switch out every 6 weeks, different departments, but I stayed in pharmacy. I loved it that much. Even contemplated going to pharmacy school, but then I looked at, and so I said, no, I don't want to do that. I think I'm gonna go the cheaper route. Went to pharmacy tech school. In the midst of going to pharmacy tech school, I worked at Nike, was a personal shopper for Nike. Did that while going to pharmacy tech school, finished up tech school, got a job in retail. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. Just a second here. Got a job in pharmacy, worked retail for 7 years. That was an experience. Very challenging. That's where I probably really grew as a pharmacy tech. Learned the business side of how pharmacy works with insurance. Definitely learned, that's where I really got my strong backbone. That's a challenge, dealing with customers, doctor's offices, whatnot. So I did that, and then I went to mail order. I did that for 2 years, and then I ended up where I'm at now at OHSU. And also in the process of OHSU, and in the process in general, I didn't think that I wanted to continue a pursuit to go to college, but finding out that that's important as far as if you want to advance or if you want to, further yourself, better yourself. Always look to better yourself in any situation. And throughout that process, I realized as far as my worth, my value, and my capabilities. So it was definitely a long road. I don't have any regrets, but if I could do it over again, I definitely would have went to pharmacy school. So, and just got it out the way. But now, I went down a different path, and I'm happy where I'm at. I love what I do, and so that's how I got started, and that's where I'm at. So.
Go ahead, Marshana, take it away.
I was just gonna close this out, but I wanted to give people, Saida, I wasn't sure if you had one more piece or anything for everyone.
I did just want to say thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for everyone for being here. Your stories are amazing. I think it's very important to just see, the diversity that's on here. I think that was the goal, and what myself and Marshana wanted to do was to show just the diversity. I love the saying that Black people are not a monolith, right? We have many different strengths, interests. We're all really different, and there's several paths that each of us have taken to get where we are. We're all successful in our own right? We all are working hard, taking care of ourselves, our families, and I just want to celebrate each and every one of you. I appreciate you taking out the time today to offer your story. I do hope, my prayer, of course, and hope is that someone walks away from hearing these stories and that they're inspired, and that they do reach out and they ask more questions about how to even, let you all be resources in their path for whatever they're doing, whether they want to go into tech or with the medical field, that they know that there are people that look like them who are in those spaces, who know what they're going through and can encourage them. So again, a very special thank you from the Black United Front of Oregon. A very special thank you for myself as the post-secondary options coordinator, because my goal is to make sure that our students know that there are options and can follow in the footsteps. Like the man said, reach back and pull some folks with you, So thank you again from me, and Marshana, if you want to close out, you can take it away.
Yeah, I just want to thank you to our attendees. I know it's evening and you have school and all that stuff, so we appreciate you sticking with us. Panelists, thank you so much. Just having space is so important. I think sometimes we don't make enough time with each other to do this kind of thing and to hear from each other. So hopefully you all were able to make some connections in this space too. And yes, we are going to definitely keep chasing you down to help us out at Black United Funds. So don't be shy. Stay connected, and thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you, and have a good evening. See you later.
Thank you.